Hey, welcome back. In today's episode, I'm going to give you a run through of the major highlights and takeaways following the President Trump speech at the Bitcoin Nashville conference yesterday. And also, what would this mean now looking forward to the remainder of this year in terms of the future of Bitcoin, at least from a national sovereign perspective in the United States. So let's jump straight into it. Okay, well, as you would expect, whenever there is that expectation of the likes of President Trump coming into any public appearance, it always stands out with a huge euphoria and grand expectation. He's actually delayed his entrance to the conference almost up to an hour. So it was actually a deliberate tactic on his side, knowing full well that President Trump is always this showman. He likes to make a grand appearance into the stage. So I mean, he kicked off. He was very well received at the start of the conference, and he kicked off saying how he was the first ever U.S. president to ever address at the Bitcoin conference, which it is true. It is a marked historical milestone. And also it made some mention about where he has full respect and admiration for what Bitcoin community has achieved over the years, and he recognizes it's been incredible. And his main thesis is to really want America to dominate the future in every way he can, whether it's to be first in technology, the first in science, the first in manufacturing, the first in artificial intelligence, and first in space, and indeed in first of crypto and Bitcoin. So he made all these statements, which really kicked off, very, very positive at the start of his speech. And he goes on to say, just following pretty much the same tactic from RFK Jr. speech the day before, where he pledged that on day one he will fire Gary Gensler. As you know, he's the current US SEC chair. And he will appoint a new one instead. So that actually just kicked off euphoria and praise on the Bitcoin community at the conference. If I were to sum up, what were the key messages? Because there was a few rhetoric on domestic policies and even foreign policies, China and all the rest. But let's get down to the nitty gritty. He made a mention that his energy policy will support Bitcoin mining and artificial intelligence. Now, this is pivotal. He went on to say that he will protect your right, your American citizen's right to self-custody of your Bitcoins and cryptos. Again, very important statement. He will create a strategic Bitcoin reserve with the 210,000 Bitcoins that the US government currently have confiscated from illicit activities. Another important statement. He will appoint a Bitcoin Presidential Advisory Council for the industry. And finally, there will never be a CBDC as long as he's president. I mean, these are the 5-point plan that is mostly relevant for crypto and particularly Bitcoin industry. Now, this is very, very important pledge. And actually, if you remember, the initial rumor leading up to this event or conference was around the mention of Bitcoin as a strategic reserve for the US Treasury. He actually went on and superseded those expectations. So that in itself, and in addition to, again, a public political figure ever making these sort of appearance at the Bitcoin conference, let alone those 2 points, is overwhelmingly positive for Bitcoin and exceeded our original and initial expectations. The effect of this speech, I think, honestly, will be felt more on the medium to long term, particularly over the 5-year period if he indeed gets elected as US president in November, because it will take time to put these pledges into effect. I think he gave just enough to entice and enthuse the Bitcoin community at the conference, but ultimately I feel personally that RFK Jr. has won the overall Bitcoin conference debate. I guess it makes sense because he's, in all honesty, he's always the underdog, the unlikely winner of the presidential debate. He threw an awful lot of candy and pledges at the conference, whilst I saw President Trump a little bit more cautious, a little bit more premeditated, more prudent in terms of not overly set of promises that he recognized that it may take some time, and he wants to leave, I suspect, the private industry, the huge institutional investors in Bitcoin, a little bit of breathing space, right? in terms of this announcement. So I think this was premeditated. I think indeed this is very, very positive for the industry. And I think that the nice sweetener at the end of this, there was an appearance from a senator called Cynthia Loomis, who is, she recognized as she walked into the stage as the Bitcoin senator, where she's actually unveiled a groundbreaking Bitcoin strategic reserve bill. She had it on her hands as she made the announcement at the conference, aimed at transforming America's fiscal future. So she actually presented some of the details of that Bitcoin reserve bill, saying that in the United States, to establish the Bitcoin strategic reserve, right, which was a follow-on announcement made beforehand by President Trump in his speech, a network secure vault and purchase programs to ensure the transparency of Bitcoin holdings of the US federal government. She went on to say that 210,000 Bitcoins that President Trump has announced to be stored in geographically dispersed vaults, 5 years to assemble 1 million Bitcoin, which will end up being 5% of the world's supply, to be held a minimum period of 20 years and used for one purpose and one purpose alone, which is to reduce the US debt. Now, the rationale that she explained why they come about having this bill is they recognize that, they were not stupid. There is growing recognition that we all know that they printed too much money, they spent too much money throughout the history of the United States. Not anymore with this Bitcoin strategic reserve, that's what she says. We'll be debt-free because of Bitcoin. And recognize that if they were to get into the administration, they don't want to raise taxes, but to use this Bitcoin strategic reserve to pay off the debt. So I think it's fair to say not as excited as RFK Jr.'s speech the day before, but certainly the future of Bitcoin, at least from a national sovereign level, is overwhelmingly positive. In a nutshell, I think the conference has been highly successful. It has certainly exceeded our initial expectations. We all thought that was just going to be limited to the strategic reserve for Bitcoin in the US Treasury, but no, they went over and above that expectation, which is a huge plus. And I think the actual effect will be felt once the US presidential election has ended, and I think President Trump will be the resounding winner. And if that's the case, then the Bitcoin future is going to be even more prominent and even more prosperous and bright future ahead. So I just want to end this note as, in the meantime, we all know what the strategy is. All we can do is hold on to our Bitcoin holdings, and if we can, to continue to dollar cost average, euro cost average, pound cost average, yen cost average, as much as we can during this interim period, because certainly once the US presidential election comes to an end, it's going to go really parabolic. So if you like this video, please hit the like button, and if you haven't done so, please subscribe to this channel, as I regularly post high quality videos that could be of interest to you investors out there. So until next time.